Two people, same paycheck, same year. One ends December with almost nothing set aside, wondering quietly where it all went, convinced they simply didn't earn enough to save properly. The other has built over $2,000, without ever feeling like they were sacrificing anything, without a single month of tight budgeting, spreadsheets, or guilt-driven restriction. Same income. Same bills. Same temptations sitting in the same inbox and the same group chats, whispering the same reasonable-sounding excuses. Neither of them is bad with money. Neither of them earns more than the other. The only difference between them is a single rule, applied to $50 a week, that nobody talks about because on the surface it sounds far too small to matter. Person A and Person B both bring home $4,500 a month after tax, with roughly $4,200 in monthly expenses, rent, groceries, transportation, insurance, the usual list nobody enjoys itemizing. Both genuinely intend to save, and both would say, if you asked them in January, that saving is a priority this year. Person A follows the instinct most people default to without ever questioning it, save whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month, once everything else has already been paid. Person B follows a different rule entirely. The moment their paycheck lands, $50 is automatically moved out, every single week, before it ever has the chance to touch their spending account. Same income, same expenses, same 12 months on the calendar, same starting intentions. From here, the two paths quietly diverge, and by December, the gap between them is larger than either person would have predicted back in January. $50 a week doesn't feel like a decision worth making consciously. It's a takeout order, a couple of coffees, a rounding error against a $4,500 paycheck. Meanwhile, saving what's left over feels responsible entirely on its own. It sounds like discipline, like being smart enough not to lock money away that you might genuinely need later in an emergency. Watching an automatic transfer quietly leave your account feels like a small loss, week after week, a number you notice. Watching nothing happen, because you simply meant to save later, feels like no loss at all, right up until December arrives and the account tells a different story. But feelings and math are different things, and they're measuring completely different questions. One of these paths is designed to survive a bad week without breaking stride. The other only works if every single week happens to be a good one. By the surface numbers, Person B's rule looks almost trivial, hardly worth building a whole video around. $50 a week, 52 weeks a year, comes out to $2,600, a little over 4% of their annual take-home pay, barely a rounding error against $54,000 in yearly income. Person A's method looks, on paper, like it should perform just as well, or even better, since nothing is locked away and any unusually good month could produce a deposit far larger than $50 in one sitting. If both people are equally responsible adults with equally good intentions, the two totals should land somewhere close to each other by December. Until you look closely at what actually happens once a single month gets busy, unpredictable, or simply human, the way most months eventually do. Here's what saving what's left over quietly costs, month after month, in ways that never show up on a receipt. There is no fixed amount, which means there is no real target. Some months produce $80 in surplus, some produce zero, and a few produce a deficit that eats directly into whatever was set aside the month before. Lifestyle creep fills the gap automatically and invisibly. A slightly nicer dinner, an unplanned purchase, a subscription that seemed reasonable in the moment, each one justified because there wasn't technically a rule against it. There's also a hidden decision cost that compounds its own way. Every single month, willpower has to be resummoned entirely from scratch, and willpower happens to be the least reliable resource in all of personal finance, especially by the third week of a hard month. On average, people relying on leftover saving end up putting aside only a small fraction of what they originally intended, and some months, nothing at all, without ever consciously deciding to stop. Person B's rule avoids every one of these leaks, not through more discipline or more willpower, but through removing the decision from the equation completely. The money is gone before it can be debated, spent, or quietly justified away in the moment. That's the entire mechanism, start to finish. No ongoing willpower required after the first 5 minutes of setup. Zoom out to year 5. Person A, saving inconsistently at an average of roughly $10 a week once lifestyle creep is honestly accounted for, has accumulated around $2,600 total, 5 full years of effort to match what Person B accomplishes in one single year. Person B, keeping that same $50 transfer sitting in plain cash with zero growth, already has $13,000 sitting untouched. Move that same $50 a week into a high-yield savings account earning 4.5%, and it grows to roughly $14,200 by year 5. Move it instead into a simple index fund averaging 10% annually, and it grows to roughly $15,900 over the same stretch. Now zoom further, to year 10. Person A, still relying on leftovers, has roughly $5,200, if the habit even survived that long without quietly falling apart somewhere around year 3. Person B's index fund version, meanwhile, has grown to roughly $41,400, entirely from a rule that never once required a conscious decision after the first week. The rule itself didn't get more impressive with time. It simply never stopped compounding, while the other approach kept resetting back towards zero every few months, quietly, without anyone announcing it. None of this means spontaneous saving is worthless, or that automation is some kind of magic trick that works for everyone in every circumstance. The rule only works if there's genuine margin already built into the budget. Automating $50 a week when expenses are already tight just produces overdraft fees, which erases the entire advantage before it can even begin to compound. Freelancers and anyone with irregular income often have good, legitimate reason to avoid rigid automation, since a fixed withdrawal landing in a lean month can do real, lasting damage to an already thin cushion. Leftover saving, for all its inconsistency, offers a genuine flexibility that a locked-in rule simply doesn't. Nothing is inaccessible, nothing is committed before the money has even been earned. The rule isn't superior in every situation a person might face, and it isn't a substitute for actually earning more or fixing a budget that's genuinely underwater. It's superior for one very specific problem: turning good intentions into a result that doesn't depend on remembering to have willpower on a random Tuesday in October. 3 weeks after the last paycheck already feels spent. The real lesson here was never really about $50, and it was never about being frugal enough or disciplined enough. It's about how far a decision sits from the exact moment you're tempted to break it. Money that's removed before you ever see it never has to be defended, negotiated with, or willed into existence 12 separate times a year. Money left for later has to survive every version of you that shows up between now and December, including the tired one, the stressed one, and the one who just wants a nicer dinner tonight and will justify it easily. Before you build your next savings goal, ask yourself the one question that actually matters: are you deciding to save, or are you removing the decision entirely? The answer that includes everything is the only answer that matters.